Hi YouTube. I don't really have time to go through and edit this as nicely as I'd like to, but I've been having some thoughts lately I'd like to share with you. Is it bad to believe? People who reject evolution or the long age of the Earth often come back to what might be considered to be a somewhat reasonable question. Does it matter if I think the Earth is old? Does it matter if I think things evolve? And for most people, the answer is no. Practically, it really doesn't make much difference. But there is an underlying problem that has more to do with how people think than what people think. If someone is presented with compelling evidence for a phenomenon, that person should accept it as being true. For instance, even though the world looks like it's flat for all practical purposes, we've all seen images of the Earth from space, we're familiar with experiments that show the curvature of the Earth, we accept the evolution that the Earth rotates that allows the sunrise and sunset, we readily accept models of the solar system because these models so accurately reflect what it is that we observe. If a person did believe that the Earth were flat and that the sunrise represented something other than the Earth rotating so that we could view the sun, what evidence could you possibly give that person to show them that they're wrong? Would you be upset that the person denied that anyone had ever circumnavigated the globe? Would it shock you if this person were unfazed by the different constellations visible in the northern and southern hemispheres? The evidence for the Earth being round is absolutely overwhelming. But there are people who exist who are part of legitimate flat Earth societies. They really believe that the Earth is flat. And it doesn't make much practical difference if you think the Earth is in the shape of a geoid, if it's flat or a triangle or a cube. But what we have with flat earthers is an example of people who have faulty reasoning. Failure to recognize the correct shape of the Earth reflects an inability to properly process information. Would you elect a flat earther to be mayor? Wouldn't you feel that that person's inability to respond to solid evidence with regards to the shape of the Earth reflects really an inability to handle evidence in general, which would mean that the person would make a poor governor or mayor? Further, wouldn't you keep that person away from your young relatives in fear that their minds might be corrupted with the same inability to process information? And wouldn't you be upset to find out that you lived in a place where half of the people believed that the Earth is flat? This is where we come back to the evolutionary theory in the age of the Earth. The evidence has been laid out numerous times. An unbiased review of current evolutionary theory, such as was had in the Dover trial in Pennsylvania a few years ago, will leave no doubt in an honest observer's mind that evolution happens. There are certainly unanswered questions in science about evolution, but they're about the nature of how evolution happens and what drives evolution, not whether or not it takes place. The age of the Earth has been known for quite some time to be substantial, even well before radiometric dating was established. We knew before evolution was ever thought up that the Earth is old. It's blatantly obvious. But does it matter if you accept either of these things as true? Again, in a sense, no. It won't save anybody's life to know that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, or to recognize that in a million years there's going to be a new species of lizard on the Earth. But it does matter in another sense. It matters because it reflects critical thinking skills. Just like it's absurd for a person to reject the shape of the Earth, it's absurd to reject the idea that organisms change over time. It's quite telling. Why would a person reject something that's obviously true? I can think of three possibilities. One, the person has poor reasoning skills. Two, the person has faulty information sources. Or three, the person has a personal agenda that precludes acceptance of the fact. None of these is good. The first could potentially be helped through training, through the poor reasoning could come as the result of medical problems or other major difficulties that wouldn't really be able to overcome. But it's possible that if you have poor reasoning skills, that could be helped. If you have bad information sources, then that can be helped through education if you're willing to have the education. It's not good if you have poor reasoning, it's not good if you have bad information. Both of those can be dealt with, though. I don't want my fellow humans to be ignorant of the world, and I don't want my fellow humans to experience the world in a faulty way. On the other hand, if a person has an agenda that's going to preclude their acceptance of a fact, that's much more insidious. An agenda like maintaining a religious belief can be so firmly rooted in a person that absolutely nothing else matters. With creationists, the most important source of information is the Bible. When the words in the book supersede observable reality, there is the danger of extreme evil. I will grant that most creationists are fairly sane, but the problem is that belief in the literal Bible, above all else, allows for a sane person to do insane things in the name of rationality. Moreover, when science is demonized by the general populace, the funding gets cut off. Evolutionary theory has allowed amazing advancements in biology. The age of the Earth is essential to understanding anything in geology. Scientific advances have allowed for America to become the global superpower that it is today. You look at George W. Bush, who said the jury's still out on evolution. During his presidency, scientific funding was greatly diminished. NASA was forced to move away from theoretical research and work instead on exploration, which at NASA they despised. The National Science Agency was strapped for funding until the most recent stimulus package. They weren't able to carry out the research that they wanted to. I want to live in a world with rational people who accept reality as it is. When people reject reality, even if it isn't their job to work on scientific problems, everyone loses.